One. Yay! We on. Hi, Alison.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly. Can
Oh,
you hear me?
awesome. How are you doing today?
Good. Looks like there might be a lag, but very good.
Good. Well, hopefully the internet is working because it's been tough on my side. So I pray it doesn't let us down today. Finger crossed. Actually, I'm keeping my toes crossed since nobody can see my toes right now. So I'll keep them crossed. So tell us, working lady, who is Alison Gesu?
Yes, so I'm from Cameroon. Ooh, ooh. My dad is Bambara. It's a nice mix between Anglophone and Francophone. But I've been in the US since about 2002. Went to school in Cameroon. Primary school was PNU. College was Our Lady of Lourdes Secondary School. And right after I wrote my GCE O levels, came to the United States for high school and then completed college here. But I guess in terms of outside of school, I currently work as a project manager, and I also have side businesses, one of which is Folebe Oil.
Folebe oil, exactly. I saw it. I saw a lot of Folebe oil. So how long have you been doing it? Is it new? Has it been a
My family has owned the plantation since about 1999, and before, officially, I guess 2016, they were selling it wholesale to different people so that they could do their own private label. There was a small stint or a short stint in 2008 when we had tried to do private label, and at least that's when we started doing private label. It took off in Cameroon and it took off in parts of Europe, but then not so much in the US, just because at the time too, I was very, very green and out of college. I didn't know the best way to manage and handle a business. So it wasn't until about 2016 that we decided to try again. And, since then we've been able to sell to, because again, I'm based in Minnesota, but we've been able to sell to a lot of the local stores in Minnesota. We've been able to go on Amazon to sell through Amazon Prime, so you can get free deliveries, and then we also now sell through the website as well. So there's different avenues for where we're doing that, but it's been a slow but progressive move towards establishing itself here in the United States.
wow, that's a big market. So considering you have already mentioned all those avenues where to get the product, I think you should be flowing. It's just about getting the word out there, maybe. I need to actually put my order and I will. I promise I will because
Okay.
it's just
You
so I mean, why?
promise.
Why did you say people may need that here? Because I live in Houston, and in Houston, we have all those African store, but I mean, there are some Nigerian owned. For most of them, actually, they are Nigerian owned.
Mhm.
And as a Cameroonian, I have to say, sometimes the quality is not the best, to be
Mhm.
honest. So
Yep.
one
And
makes you feel like there's a need for it in the US.
yeah, and that's one of the reasons why honestly was quality, because the way that we make our oil and produce bottles, or at least some companies that you see, there's like a black remains at the bottom. We don't have any of that because we have a really great decantering system to help filter all that out. Some companies, especially like the Asian companies, they tend to use red dye or just something to make it look red. Ours is naturally that way. Now, granted, when it's solidified, because palm oil does respond to its environment, but when it's in cooler temperatures, it is harder and it looks lighter. But again, once you're able to warm it up, heat it up, you'd see the beautiful redness of what palm oil is, and our oil is 100% just palm pulp, so nothing, no additives goes into it or anything, no preservatives, nothing like that. So knowing that there was a need for quality palm oil, and then also from, granted, a lot of West African countries do use palm oil. Sometimes it's nothing like your own. So Nigerians, yes, they have their own. I know Liberians too. They're pretty particular about their palm oil as well. But again, when you know that there's something from your home country that you're used to eating, you're used to having in your food, you know what that's going to taste like with no surprise.
That's true, actually. I'm one of those. I'm very peculiar with my food. It's like dole, like I need my leaves to be what they have to be, washed properly and all that because
Exactly.
it can make or undo your meal. just like that in a snap of the finger. So when you do that, do you have meetings with like suppliers or partners and things like that? And is it easy for you as a young African Cameroonian woman to just present yourself and be like, hey, I have this product and I'm trying to get it to you and see if you can do something about it, help me make it known, help me sell it easily?
So yes, for anyone who's been in business, they would know that sales is the hardest thing to do. And also, just market acquisition, customer acquisition is another. It's extremely difficult. First, because it's granted it's a newer company, you have to be able to build trust first. Trying to figure out ways that we could establish ourselves. I know that when we first started in 2016, and it has been even though it's a family business, I'm the sole person here in Minnesota of my family, so the management of it here has been primarily on my shoulders, and then obviously my husband, who I just rope in once in a while to help me out. But it was, for a while there in 2016, a lot of driving around to different African stores just to ask about whether or not they want to carry our product. We'll leave some samples with them so that if anything, they could try it as an owner. And then if they like it, then definitely follow up with us for to re-up or at least to order. And for a while, that was working well. But I think one of the challenges that I've definitely faced is just the technology aspects with the folks that, especially the older generation, that owns a lot of the African stores. Because, younger folks were used to technology, an email, a call, it's pretty straightforward in terms of how you do business that way. But then with older generations, they're, more face-to-face kind of people. And then it's kind of man, no man's, or if they know you or know you through somebody, then they feel a lot more comfortable with you. So breaking in that way was very difficult. And even when it came to because the product is good and then there's a market and need for it, more times than not, or at least you're hoping that people would, especially the stores, will call you back to reorder, but there wasn't a lot of that happening. So it's a lot of me, going back out to them after a few months or so to see if they still have some stock on hand or if they wanted more. So it's definitely been a just even break into African stores. And so when just trying to figure out how I could get past the dependence of just primarily being in stores was looking into avenues like Amazon. And so once we were able to kind of break into that has at least helped from a consistency of sales perspective. But again, it's nothing like having your own storefront, being able to feel and touch the product and things like that. So there's still some challenges that we're still facing and trying to grow through. But it's a lot of trial and error and just persistence of reaching out and talking to shelves.
Yeah, I can see that. You can see that. You mentioned a husband, so you're a family woman, I guess.
I am.
Any kids?
Yes, married since 2005. So we both work. So he has his full-time job. I have my full-time. So there has been a need to be able to balance that. And then also, at least from my perspective, because this is something that when I decided that I wanted to go into the family business of selling oil, had to make sure that he was okay and comfortable with it as well, because even though I'm going to be carrying the brunt of the responsibility, there are still times when whatever I'm doing will affect him and will affect his availability, even if it's not intentional. So going into it, we had to have that conversation in regards to what it looks like for me, where I would need his support should it come up. And, luckily he's a great guy. So he's been very supportive and he's been able to help, for those moments where we're like, hauling boxes to go to stores.
You need those arms,
Yes.
Oh, okay. So tell me, did you ever feel like you are in a business that is mainly for men, or you just like felt naturally involved into it, no problem? Because lately, the conversation I've been having with a lot of women is that, we seems to have pierced a lot of field, like we entered so many field now that used to be dominated by men. I've been told a chef, the best cook is a male, basically. So what we have, if the best cook is a male, the best this is a male, the best that is a male, like we best at what? Just having babies, Did you ever had any kind of feeling of such, or did you just went for it, just straight in and said, well, I can do it. Let me just do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, business tends to be male dominated, but when you think about, even just the way that Cameroonians work and are, we're just naturally entrepreneurs. I come from a family of entrepreneurs myself. So that never felt like it was a barrier for me. The only thing was making sure that I could understand the way that, especially since the people that I do face-to-face business with are of the older generation, knowing how to properly approach that so that it doesn't seem offensive, or because I am a little bit more Americanized than, your regular Cameroonian. So you're just trying to make sure that you're not stepping on the wrong toes in any kind of way. Because I've been in situations where I went to a store to sell to this really nice older lady, and she felt like I was looking at her the wrong way. So she almost drove me from her store, and I was confused. But it's been something that my parents have been working this way, and they've been able to collaborate together. So I didn't let that stop me.
Okay. Did you take over this business as a way to, I understand it's a family business, but were you inspired by one of your parents to just kind of be like, I've seen them doing this and I want to add my stone to it so that, we can grow it better? If yes, which one?
Oh, definitely. Because so my mom is one of the people who goes, because the farm is in Banga. So that's like, 3 hours or so from Douala. And so she's the one who goes, 3-4 o'clock in the morning to the farm to make sure that she's there on time for them to start production. Sometimes she stays there, for days at a time, weeks at a time, just to make sure we're having proper production, proper quality. And she's really the one who's like managing it. Even though there's like people there at the farm that are handling that, she's there herself, making sure everything is good. My dad, he's the one who has like the liaisons in town, that, man-to-man business, making sure that he's talking to the people who are ready to sell the product. He does the brokering and all that kind of stuff. So seeing them work so hard and trying to figure out what can I do to help expand that market as well, so that they have more options than just the marchés in Douala to sell, and some of the people that they work with in Europe, but to figure out how can we do this over here as well, because there is that need for it. Even though there's so many types of oils, there's still nothing like Cameroon palm oil. There's still nothing like our own. So I really wanted to see what can I do to help them, so that if it doesn't feel like they're on their own island doing their own thing, but then really make it more of a family business.
I like your drive, I have to say, because you just go bam, bam, bam. I think that's the project manager side, like bam, bam, bam. Yeah. So, do you have like a particular way you work? As in, how do you manage to combine your family life, your work life, your career, your business all together? Is it something that you do? Is there a way to prioritize it? Or do you have any priority in your head? So definitely prioritizing and also compartmentalizing. So priority, as in if there's something that needs to be addressed immediately, there's a deadline coming up, something that we need to get out as soon as possible, I shift my focus to that, and that's what I focus on. I don't do a great job of, time management, because I work during the day full time, and then half the time evenings I'm also there working on Folebe oil or some other business that I'm doing. Weekends are just about the same. So making sure that, again, if there's anything that's pressing that needs to be done, I kind of create a schedule around that, just to make sure that I'm also being considered at that time. And then I really know that my husband is suffering from all this, but again, we chill and sit on the couch together. We're watching shows as I'm working, things like that. So we just try to figure out how to make it work. Okay. Mm-hmm. Why Folebe? What does that mean?
So like I mentioned, my dad is Bamlike. He is from a village called Fongundeng. And so there is a hill or a mountain in the Fongundeng region that's called Folebe. And that's basically one of the, like the mountains where we believe like the gods rest. So that was basically an homage to that side. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's amazing. So do you often go on vacation in Cameroon? Because I believe your parents are still there, right?
Yes, my parents are still there. We don't go as often. We try to do the December trips. Typically, unfortunately, we couldn't go this past year because of COVID. But the last time I was there was probably February 2 years ago. February 2 years ago. But I'm hoping if things get better this year, we'll be back there in December.
So tell me, you went to Cameroon, you did your primary school, you did your high school in Cameroon, and then you came over here for college.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that you learned during those years in Cameroon that helped you through your career and who you are today? Like, is there something about, I don't know, the education, the upbringing, whatever it is? Just tell us what helped. What did Cameroon contribute to this woman I'm talking to right now?
So at the time, I didn't appreciate it and I didn't realize it, but boarding school definitely instilled a sense of ownership of who I am. Because there we had strict schedules, we had uniforms. Your time was accounted every single second of the day in boarding school, and the same thing with the way we studied. We had study time, very little rec time, but again, it was very, very structured. So having that background, I think, has at least helped me in terms of creating a sense of personal structure as well, or at least knowing how to replicate that. Because I won't lie, sometimes I get lazy, but then knowing that those boundaries, or at least those initial phases were set up, has at least helped me as I've grown, as I've become one, and as I become my own person. And then even just the way that we used to study in school, because leaving Cameroonian schools to come to U.S. schools, it felt that the education system is very different. We do a lot. I feel like we do a lot more reading in Cameroon. We don't have as many vacations and things like that. And you're really, when you do exams and tests, you're writing essays. It's not multiple choice, and so you really think and there's that whole process of making sure that you're understanding what you've learned at the end of it all. And even with the major exams that are based off of what you've been learning for the last 3 years, 5 years, whatever it is. There's just so much more in terms of creating those habits for how to learn and understand. So that's one thing that I think has definitely helped me as I transition into school over here.
Okay. If you were to talk to any of the younger Allison, you pick. The 15 years old Allison, 10, but I think the teenager might be more interesting, the one that have most, is stories to tell us. What would you tell her that now that you wish she had known then?
Oh man. So I am naturally a worrywart. So I would say, don't worry, you'll be fine. You'll figure it out.
You know what's funny? You're not the only person to have said it to me, Somebody else say, I'll tell my young self, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. Don't worry, everything's going to work out. I'm like, why do you worry so much?
I don't know. It's a thing. I'm just always, my mind just never switches off. So I'm like, just pace yourself. You'll be fine.
That's terrible. So when you look at what social media does, I mean, obviously, social media is like a sword. It has its positive and negative sides. Do you think social media has a good impact on women in general, on what they do, or on the young ones? I'm trying to focus on the female generation, does social media have a good impact on them these days? What Facebook is showing, Instagram, is it positive or is it negative, or maybe both? What do you think?
Yeah, so my take on it is that because social media, just like the internet, has connected us in ways that was not possible, maybe 20, 30 years ago, and even just in terms of how I use it as a business, granted, it's difficult to get the eyeballs on it, but the fact that it makes it accessible and it's a version of free advertising, for lack of a better term. So in that sense, the part that I would say, for at least for the younger folks to be wary of is the kind of content you consume on there. Because there is a lot on there that can be negative and that sends you down a spiral. Then, like you said, double-edged sword, where there's the positives on there, where if you look out for the right kind of content, that's the kind of thing that, based off of the algorithms, you'll get as well. So I would just, again, my nugget would be just to be careful of what you focus on social media. Now our phones and, for those who have like, Googles and Alexas in their house, they're getting a lot smarter and they're picking up a lot of, what you're looking for and searching for. Again, nothing that I'm too worried about because, well, if the government needs to know something, we'll know. So there's no need to run from that. But at the same time, just be safe, and it's not always about, it doesn't have to be negative, basically.
So when you look at the young ones back home in Cameroon, do you think there's a better life for them in terms of structure? Does the government has a better structure than the one, our generation or our mother's generation had? Or do you feel like things are getting, worse in a certain way? Do you think the generation of today is doing much better than the one of yesterday?
So that's a really good question, and I wish I was more plugged into what's happening at home, because I feel for every generation we always feel like we had it best, we had it better, and then when you go back, it's like I don't know what these kids are doing, and what's going on with them, but yeah, no, that's a very good question, and it's a difficult.
Just looking at yourself, for example, if I was to compare you and your mom, okay, that's two different generations.
Yes.
Okay. Do you think, what would you say what would you say you added to the table that, completed what your mom started?
Well,
because obviously you're just working on this American leg of the operation, which is already a plus, but
yeah,
just, have you ever thought about it?
I mean, I do.
Looking at how they used to function, our mother had their own ways. We have our own way. I'm sure the next generation will have their own way,
Right. The one thing that I would say is, and again, I could be all the way off on this, but then I do believe that, at least for my generation compared to my mother's, with technology, there have been ways to make things more efficient. And just making sure that we can also work smarter and not just hard. So that's one thing that for personally for me, I always try to figure out how can we make this process better? How can we streamline things? And that's definitely more of the, American standpoint, because I understand that that's not always the same way in Cameroon, because I've been there in Cameroon where it's like you tell somebody to do something, they say they will on X date, you come back and it ain't done. So, so then you have to figure out, what can I do to put processes and checkpoints in place so that when I say I'm going to come back on this date to pick up something, that you're not disappointed. And I don't know that structure necessarily lives well in Cameroon quite yet. So that's one thing that I would say for looking at, improvement from a government perspective, from a personal perspective, that there's definitely things that as just, human beings trying to work with each other, that we should just be more considerate of.
I think that's a very valid point. So if one of our young Cameroonian, especially one of our young girls, is looking at you today, they'll feel like, oh my goodness, you're so pretty, you sound so smart, I want to be like you. What would you tell them?
It's like, be yourself. It's not that great. I mean, the grass always looks greener, right? But then again, I say, water your own grass and enjoy it. Don't worry about what other people got going on, because that's a distraction. Everybody, for the most part, always likes to put their best foot forward. Like today, I tried to put my best foot forward, put on my face, did my hair.
That's a new expression.
Exactly. So it's if there's some place where you feel like you want to be, again, try not to compare to other people, because it's you don't know how they got there, you don't know the struggles, you never have the backstory, your journey will never be the same. But then if there's some place that you do want to be, create that action plan, talk to people who maybe have been there to get ideas of maybe how you can also attain that. But, definitely try not to be envious of anything, because again, people's stories are absolutely different.
And talking about people dealing with different stories or having different journey, was there at any point in time a moment where you ever felt low? As in maybe things were not working out fine. I don't know. It could be while working on Folebe or just in your own career? Things
Oh,
were just not working the way you wanted. You were really disappointed. I mean, just, one of those low down time.
oh,
How did you
absolutely.
cope?
I would say every year I have a really solid low. Like
Or
it.
how did you get past that? Like, tell us more. I want to hear about it.
So say for example, just for the sake because we're talking about Folebe, we had tried to kick this off in 2008 initially, trying to sell here locally. I go into stores, people look at me as a young girl, who's this person? I can't trust you. And then on top of that, to run a business is expensive. So it's not like right out of college, you're making the big bucks. So on $30,000 salary, there's not a lot that you can do right out of college. And so and at the time too, because I graduated in 2008 from my undergrad, so I went to school for business administration as my major. I copped out and had a French as a minor. But, coming out of school, unlike everyone else who had jobs ready to go and lined up that were paying 50K, I was still searching. And if you remember well too, around that time, the economy was just about tanking.
Yeah.
So I was like, I've spent all this money in college because I had a ton of student loans. I have all this money that I have to pay back at some point. I don't have a solid job. The career that I thought I wanted in banking, I'm not great at accounting, so that doesn't help. I'm trying to apply for marketing and advertising jobs because I think that's where I want to be. Because I took a couple classes in college. None of them are even sniffing my way. They're not even paying me no attention. And so it got to a point where it's like, okay, I'm going to just work a part-time job until I can figure out where I can work. And so you have, again, all these things that are happening. And it's like, well, for sure, I can't take the responsibility of having a business when I don't even know what's going on with myself and how I'm going to pay back these student loans, because it's not like my parents are going to be paying it back for me. That was now my responsibility. So that's just one for an example. Another one too was, years later in 2000, I want to say, 2013, I decided that I enjoy fashion. I feel like I at the time I had started working as a project manager, so I thought I had found my groove. Okay, I want to be able to work for myself. I know I don't want to work with someone else, work for someone else for the rest of my life. So what can I do to get out from underneath someone else's shadow and working, doing a full-time job? Yeah, and so I decided to open up a boutique. And I did the planning and everything. I had my business plan. Nobody, of course, was giving loans to me because, well, sometimes as being a Black person and young and not great, not that I had bad credit, but it wasn't great and excellent credit. People aren't giving you loans. And again, you looking back to in hindsight, when I thought I was ready, you look back at those times and you're like, okay, yeah, you could have really tried a little bit harder to do this. But I decided to move forward anyways and open up the business. Took out a couple credit cards to help move it through. I had my plan, and I even got a location. Except this is one of the things where it's like, if I had stuck to what I had planned, maybe it would have been a better situation. But I ended up getting a location that was too big for me. And I thought at the time that I could grow into me being optimistic. But again, I planned to start with something small, but I went with something big because it was like, well, the price was just a little bit higher. And it seemed to be an ideal spot. It had all the great markings of a great location. Time to move into the location itself. The landlord at the time wasn't as cooperative, so I ended up, opening much later than I had planned, because I had planned for a May launch. Ended up opening in October, so all the inventory that I had from May now was basically irrelevant for October. And from that point on, I just felt like I was just trying to catch steam and catch up, and it was just never getting there. So by like 2015, 14 really, 9 months in, my bank accounts are both depleted because there's nothing but me and my job. That's basically, the check comes in and it goes right out to go pay stuff, pay employees. You don't realize how much Uncle Sam takes out for not only your business, but for the people you're employing. So there's just so many things I wasn't ready for. And so ended up being able to close it out in 2015. I felt like it was like honestly one of those grace of God things that just lined up. Somebody was looking for a space in that same location, and the landlord, who typically would not have let me out of my contract, was like, well, do you mind? And I was like, take it. Yeah. So there are many examples like that where it's like you jump in thinking that and you fall flat in your face. So you keep going, right? You keep trying because it's
So is it just your determination? Like from what I'm hearing, you're not a quitter for sure.
no. Yeah. So
I'm
it's
a crying baby. And I have no shame of saying that, to be honest. I cry. When things get tough, I cry.
I
But
cry.
mind you, I don't cry forever. Like I'll cry now, but I barely cry twice for the same thing, usually, because I do give it a good cry though when I cry,
I'm with you.
yeah.
I'm with you on there. I'm like, I'm gonna be in my feelings and feel like a failure and just get it all out. And then now that we've learned, we move on.
And then the older I became, I kind of open up to my faith a little bit bigger. That too kind of helps me because sometimes, like for me, for example, you don't know where to turn to. Like you feel so low, you feel like, I have no other options. Like I feel like I've exhausted all of them. So I'm like, I'm stuck. Mind you, my hubby is here, but sometimes I just like, you're not enough. Bye. My mama, I'm like, I don't want to talk to her. I'm a grown up now, kind of. You're never not too grown for mama, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then you're just like, how do I get past this? So I just like pray. And it's more like a confidence, like go and talk to God instead of talking to somebody face to face. But I'm no longer crying then, we just have a good talk. And I feel like I'm talking to myself and I'm like, okay, I hear you. And then I just bounce back, So yours, I feel like from what you're telling me, is like one of those African kids, you go out, your mom brings you back, Ali, you get the whipping of your life. You cry a good time, but you'll be back at it tomorrow. Like you will not stop.
As long as I have a brain, 2 arms, 2 legs, we can keep moving forward.
Oh my days. Okay. Well, good for you. So when you think about it, we're almost there, but I wanted to get your opinion on what women are doing today. I've been told by a lady the other day that women are doing pretty good when she looks at things, in sense where she figured that our parents, especially our mothers or the older generation, they were more focused on the job. You wake up in the morning, you go get your paycheck, you come back home, take care of your kids, for those who have jobs. Or if it wasn't that, it was just you take care of your family, your kids, your children, your household, and that. But nowadays, it seems like we want it all.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. You just have to make sure that you also have the partner who sees that the way that you do. Because I mean, my parents live very much traditional, where even though my both parents work, my mom still comes back and makes sure my dad is fed and all that great stuff. She took care of us, so it's like that was their roles and their time. My husband and I is a little bit different, so it's just with the times it changes. But I think it really, like I said before, going into business, it is ultimately my decision and what I want to do. And then it's to my partner to support me, so.
Is there any healthy aspect of Folebe oil?
Oh my God.
That is a funny question because, Eru is a health. Please, don't laugh. In some places, Eru, it's very healthy. Like all our oily food, whether it's sanga, Eru, Ndole, whatever it is, dodo.
First of all,
healthy food in some places.
First of all, for me, African food, Cameroonian food is healthy because it's all from the earth. Nothing is just like manufactured in some place in China somewhere. Dole is leaves, palm oils from the tree. So for me, like African, that's the one thing that I'm hoping it will eventually change with the conception of African food, is that it's unhealthy, because it's not. It's the way that we consume it that makes it unhealthy. Anything in moderation is fine. But when we're talking about palm oil, the oil itself, it's got no cholesterol, unlike some other oils that you have there on the market. It has vitamin A and K, so we're talking about a great eyesight, helping with hair growth and things like that. So again, Africans have been blessed with the food that we have because our food just naturally nourishes us, not only body, but then eventually soul. So when we're talking about health characteristics and qualities, for sure in African food.
Wow. So when you think about this oil, because I love my food, I'm a foodie person. I don't have this African, European. To me, food is food. It's either I like it or I don't. Okay. But I still have my favorite, in terms of African food and all that. Like when you get home, you're like, ooh, I'm on it. I'm going to be on it. When you look at things that we eat, do you think that us women nowadays, because our body changes a lot, like you can have a little bit of cupcake, remove that cupcake from your body, it takes maybe, I don't know, 50 jumping squats, and I think I'm being reasonable here, because my trainer will probably say 80 or something, which is crazy for just this little bit of a cupcake, Do you think we have reached the level of education and understanding? Just like you said, a lot of people still see our food as being unhealthy, But do you think we have made that footstep to see what we should see, as in it's only the way we eat it, just like any other thing, the way you use it, Or is there something that we should do more? Should we do, I don't know, more campaigns?
Yeah,
schools, kind of break it down really for everybody to just see that, hey, this has this, just like you said, I didn't know that there was vitamin A and all that in all.
Right. And that's the thing. I think it's really just education on our food, because for us, we just knew that it was there. Achu was achu, eru was eru. You just be enjoying your thing, Unlike here where, they do everything to the counting to the specific caloric intake and the different, components that go into it. We didn't do a lot of that with our own food. So granted, now I think there's some companies that are starting to do that when we're talking about like boxed food and changing the way that we are packaging the food that we consume as Africans. But I really do think it's just making sure that we're educated and knowing that, again, like everything else, because when you even just talking about some of the American fads and diets, you talk about like keto, which is, I think, a high protein diet or something like that. And then you have one that's strictly just, greens and vegetarian. We have all these elements in our food, so what makes the white person's food better than ours when, again, it's all sourced from the earth?
Green is green,
Exactly. It's the same. For me, it's the same thing. It's just, again, when because I've seen you go to a village for your family's there. They pack the food. So mountain high, that is not healthy for anybody. So I really do think it's just food education, and then again understanding the portions and moderation of how you consume it.
Okay, so this is the last. Okay. What would you like to see us Cameroonian women, especially your generation, the next one, and maybe the old one too? What would you like them to do differently or better these days, in your views? Like I'm sure you have family, friends, What would you like us to do more? And what would you like them, talking about the younger ones or the older ones? Somebody said, well, tell the older one to kind of lift the foot a little bit on us. As in, our mothers should just a little bit, like, let us be. We're grown now, okay? So what do you think? What would you like to see us do more to progress towards a more grounded area, a more grounded path for us women to keep going and carry the flag?
For sure. I'm definitely more of a collaborator. So I think not being shy to support and knowing that everybody's ideas, they could be different, but it doesn't mean that it's bad. So I think it's really important that, because this may not be new, but then you see how, if a Nigerian were to do something, all a Nigerian knows is happening. Same thing too. I think we can do that as Cameroonian women, Cameroonian business women, whatever the case may be. But then just know how to support and also just champion some of our own people, And it doesn't have to be anything big. It can be really just as simple as resharing a post, letting people know, whatever it is. But then knowing that community is big. So just knowing that we can support each other and just be there for each other, regardless of generation, skill, knowledge, I think it's important.
And I think so too, because it's so funny how close to home you are. Because when I saw Folebe, I had no idea who was behind it. I had no idea. And then I saw it, and Peter was like, "Oh, how is she doing?" And I'm like, "Uh-oh, okay."
Yeah, that's one thing that I'm trying to, because I'm in charge of marketing, but I'm trying to get better of, lifting the curtain and letting people know who's behind it, so I'm shy. So
I mean, it depends on your strategy, So maybe your product will talk for itself because it worked with me. You never know; it might work with somebody else as well. And
yeah.
then you coming out and unveiling who is behind it might just come and seal it, and grow it bigger.
Yeah.
So
And yeah, that's what I really wanted it to be. Again, the focus on the product, because I really do think it speaks for itself. It doesn't need, me as a spokesperson behind it. But one thing that I did want to mention though is that I'm just to get more people to know and try it. I'm putting together like 100 samples of like half-liter bottles. So if there's anybody who thinks is interested in trying it, they want to champion it with their friends. They can reach out to me at info@folebeoil.com, and then I could put them on the list. I have 100 that I'm just trying to give out to people just to have them taste it, try it, and hopefully, that would be part of our family. So.
Oh, that's amazing. Wow, that's a great idea. And you say on Amazon, you can ship it all around. Does it ship in Europe too, or just in the US?
Yeah, so Amazon is strictly just the US.
Okay.
On our website, though, so folebooil.com, so www.folebooil.com, we do have global shipping on there, but we know that the pricing is very, very difficult outside of US. But if there are folks in Cameroon who want some, still let me know by email because, again, our home base is there, my family is there, and I can hook you up to make sure that you're paying Cameroonian prices and not US prices if you're in Cameroon. So.
And if I'm in London, what should I do?
And if you're in London, still reach out because we have stores that sell our oil there.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. So we're going to have some real good Folebe meal. Yay. I'm placing my order tonight. Hold me accountable, please. I will.
All right.
Thank you so much for finding time and coming to talk to me today. I appreciate that. Good luck on Folebe and all other ventures that you have going on. And I like the decoration on your wall. Where did you get that? That has nothing to do with that interview, but I just feel like it's cute.
From Cameroon, Marché de Fleurs.
Oh yeah. And I haven't been home in a while. I need to go.
Yeah, that was my February trip. I was like, I'm bringing back these babies with me, get some of my Bamileke heritage,
No, they're really lovely. They look really nice. Cool. Mm-hmm. Nothing to do with this. Okay. I'll try to change my background next time. All right, Alison, take care of yourself. Thank you very much and have a good evening.
You too.
Bye.
Bye now.